I'm ready. Hi, good afternoon. I'd like to call the Planning and Land Use Management Committee to order. I'm Councilmember Huizar. I'm joined by Councilmember Englander. First off, our apologies for starting this meeting late. Two of the three council members from this committee were in a previous committee, the Economic Development Committee, that took longer than expected. But here we are. And if we could start by asking that, is the director from planning here? Not here? Okay.
No.
We'll note and file item number 7. I believe we could put numbers 1 on consent. Item number 1 will go on consent. And then I believe we have cards on the others. Oh, actually, item 1 and 6 can go on consent, if that's okay. Okay with you, Mr. Englander? Okay. So items 1 and 6 are on consent. And if we could hear item number 2, please.
Sure. Item 2, Councilman, is a motion by Councilman Bonin and Blumenfeld. It's asking for a waiver of the roadway widening requirements along Centinela Avenue and CD11.
Okay, we have one public speaker, Jeff Mendez. Jeff? Okay, you could come up. Only if you have to. We're going to move this item and approve. Are you of the same mindset? You don't want, otherwise, you're okay with it? Okay. So, moved by Mr. Englander. We'll second and move this item. So ordered. Okay, items 3 and 4, I believe we could take up together.
Sure. Items 3 and 4, council members, are motions by Councilman Koretz. It's giving directives to planning, building and safety, and Bureau of Street Services relative to the hillside neighborhood protections and as it relates to mansionization.
Okay, thank you. So we could I'll call 2 people up. The second person could come up in the batter's box. Nikki Miner and Bruce Kuiper. Hi, welcome. We have a 1-minute speakers allotment in the plum meeting. Thank you.
Good afternoon. Thank you for hearing this item. I'm Nikki Miner from Benedict Canyon, and I represent Bel Air Beverly Crest Neighborhood Council. We would like you to urge you to pass Paul Koretz's motion as soon as possible, get them implemented as soon as possible. The hillsides are dying, and they need your help. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Bruce Kuiper and Gary Plotkin.
Bruce Kuiper. I'm a 15-year resident of Bel Air, and I support both motions and say time is of the essence. I urge you to support this and push the time frame that's recommended in the motions. Thank you.
Thank you. Gary Plotkin, Michael Kemp.
Good afternoon, gentlemen. My name is Gary Plotkin, and I am the president of the Bel Air Beverly Crest Neighborhood Council. I was also part of writing the proposed ordinance by Councilman Koretz as other people have from Bel Air Alliance. My concern is for the entire west side and the hillside community. Not only is this a danger to the immediate residents, but it's really a danger also to the entire hillside. There are trucks that back up onto Sunset. They stage on Sepulveda on many occasions. You cannot get through the canyons. Personal experiences, my wife almost got killed because you have flagmen at one end and they forget that there should be flagmen at the other end.
Thank you, sir.
There have been multiple almost disastrous
Thank you, sir. Your time is up.
situations.
Your time is up, sir, and I got to be fair to everyone.
Okay.
Thank you.
So I urge you to follow through and pass the ordinance, and that's what I recommend. Thank you.
Great. Thank you. Michael Kemp and Pearson Pamela, and for the record, we've been joined by Councilmember Cedillo.
Yes, hi. Thank you very much. My name is Michael Kemp. I'm a member of the Bel Air Beverly Crest Neighborhood Council, and I'm chairman of their Planning and Land Use Committee for the Neighborhood Council. I just want to ask for your support of Councilman Koretz's motion. We are seeing projects that are just unprecedented scale in our area of 60,000, 90,000 square feet that are much more on the size of commercial projects, and so therefore we again ask for your support in these modifications to the Hillside ordinance. Thank you.
Thank you. Pamela Pearson, Sean Bayless.
Yes, thank you. I am here today to petition the city to return my property to my possession that was illegally taken over, occupied by an adjacent property owner in this area under an illegally and fraudulently issued B permit. The city had an experience, as you can see, with these type of projects where when they were widening Mulholland Drive as far back as the 50s, activated an ancient landslide. Thank you. And it was deemed 20 years later when my property was developed that it was unstable and my property would not have an individual driveway. Nevertheless, another 20 years later, people forgot again and the development proceeded contrary to zoning permits. Oh, I'm sorry.
Thank you, ma'am.
As well as the city contract with a perpetual easement for this public right-of-way, which was not a fee, titling fee.
Thank you.
Okay? So, thank you very much.
Thank you. Sean Bayless. Sean Bayless, Council District 5. You want to wait till we finish item number 4 as well, or do you want to go now? Okay. Donald Lowe's and Nikki Miner and Bruce Kuiper again for item number 4. Or zero, you... Okay. We're taking 3 and 4 together.
I'm Donald Lowe's. I've been down here since the 70s discussing this particular matter in general. At that time, the city attorney was James Hahn, became mayor, and he said the greatest asset in the city of Los Angeles was the mountains. Xavier Sklovsky supported the original Hillside ordinance, saying we're going to stop mansionization. It so happens that the grading department never got the message, and the technology has been outstripping the laws of the city. We started with 250 feet of grading for a habitable house, and now we're getting grading that's ripping out the hills and destroying the roads and destroying the city. I urge you to support Councilman Koretz in this motion and urge the departments to get on the ball in less than 90 days, come back with a report that has some teeth in it. Thank you.
Thank you. Nikki Miner and Bruce Kuiper once again.
Thank you. I want to add to my previous statement that there have been studies done that perhaps have not been brought before this body, that all this enormous digging that technology today allows in the hillsides has a cumulative effect on the hillsides. And one of these days there's going to be a catastrophe that unfortunately will be traced to what is being allowed to go on now. And Councilman Koretz has a very brave and excellent proposal for you. And please, again, I urge you to adopt and implement everything that he suggests. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bruce Kuiper again. I urge you to also support this motion. It's very important to our hillsides. It's very urgent and health and safety issue. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Sean Bayless.
Sean Bayless, Planning and Land Use Guide for Councilmember Paul Koret's office. Before you today are two motions that highlight a lot of the concerns that we've been having as they relate to our hillsides in our district, but we hear echoes of the same problems in other council districts. Our hillsides are home to some of the largest properties, some of the nicest homes, some of the most wonderful neighborhoods, but they're also home to some of the worst infrastructure and streets that we have in the city. What we're seeing is a spike in hillside development. It's creating a large influx of traffic, especially the large equipment, which is having a disastrous impact on our hillsides. Combine that with the baseline hillside ordinances, exempted grading provisions, and we're all of a sudden seeing 10, 20, and 30,000 square foot basements, which is requiring a tremendous amount of dirt to leave the property. So we would ask that you pass these two motions. Just for a point, we would also ask that the Building Safety Department look into, and I know they're going to anyway, but two additional aspects to these motions, and that is looking at caissons and pylons and the dirt that comes out of those, how they affect and can be added to our grading limits, and also should the city look at certain sizes of homes that become so large that the burden of infrastructure and environmental impacts requires some further review from the city.
Those are requested amendments, or is that just directing staff for what type of scope of
basically just
report back?
requested additions to the building and safety report back.
Okay.
So.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, thank you very much, and I'm certainly in support of these. I know when I first was elected in before the recession, we had similar types of demand for additional development in our communities. Communities such as El Sereno in my district, I was concerned about protecting our hillsides there and the haul routes, and I think it's appropriate for us to examine what, if anything, the city can do to re-examine our rules and regulations with respect to these haul routes, and what can we do when there are violations. It may be that in some instances, some just consider it a cost of business if we do have some infraction or even no enforcement. So the risk for no enforcement is probably something that many may be willing to take. Anyway, it's good to look at this, and I applaud Councilmember Koretz for bringing this to our attention. And any questions or comments? Okay, so we'll refer these to staff and get back, report back. We'll work it out with Council District 5 and the Planning Department as to when we get these back to committee for the reports. Okay, thank you. So ordered. Number 5, item number 5.
Yes, Councilman, item 5 is an appeal by the Bel Air Homeowners Alliance relative to a haul route to export 29,474 cubic yards of earth at 10697 West Soma Way in CD5.
Okay, there's been a request to continue this item for 1 week. I just want to put that out there first, and in consultation with the council office, we will either reopen public comment next week or not, or just keep it, because we will have satisfied public comment today. And usually it depends upon how long the agendas are, whether we stick by the strict rule of not reopening public comment, but we're going to listen to public comment today. So if we could first person up is the appellant rep, Richard Zeilinga.
Good afternoon, members of the council. My name is Richard Zeilinga.
Yeah, I'm sorry, and just stating the rules, appellants and applicants have 5 minutes. All other public comment is 1 minute, so you could take your 5 minutes if you wish.
Great, thank you very much. I want to speak to the continuance issue first. With respect to the 1 week continuance, our view of that is that it crunches the appellant with respect to what happens in the next week, because if you give them a week continuance, we effectively have to file a lawsuit if you do not grant the appeal within 48 hours. So we're following the rules. We filed our appeal within 10 days of the board's decision, working with the city clerk, Sharon Jin, and they basically wake up the night before the hearing and send you a letter saying, we want a continuance of 2 weeks. I understand you're saying now it's 1 week, but nevertheless, because they've started the statute of limitations for filing a lawsuit, which is a 30-day statute, and they started that on September 2nd, and because your statute says the council has to act within 30 days of our filing an appeal, we effectively, even before you're done with this process have to file our lawsuit, which is a crazy result, and it only happens because you grant a continuance today. Otherwise, it wouldn't, because you'd have enough time to have the hearing, and the council could act on October 1st as is currently planned.
So you're saying you would have 48 hours to file a lawsuit, you're saying?
That's correct, because
If we do the continuance.
if you don't grant the appeal and if you grant the continuance, we're basically boxed in. We're squeezed, because the way it works right now, because that notice of determination, which triggers the 30-day statute, has been filed with the county clerk, we have to file our lawsuit effectively by October 2nd.
Yeah, okay.
And there's also the 30-day statute that governs your decision, which means the board's decision is deemed final and approved if you don't act on it. So the one-week continuance is a real problem. As to the letter that was provided to you from Mr. Kalasian, we really think that letter is pretext here, because it says he says that he's worked diligently with District 5 staff. Sean Bayless, who he copied, says he learned of this letter this morning. How is that working diligently with Council 5 staff? He says he worked with the Bel Air Association. That's not the appellant. He's contacted apparently everyone but the appellant about this continuance. So this is not good faith, genuine request for a continuance. And these people have known about us working on this appeal issue and on the issue of the mitigated negative declaration since August 1. So waiting until the end to hire a new lawyer, who, by the way, interviewed to work with the appellant in this case as their lawyer, is really inappropriate. Now, as to the appeal, obviously the continuance took some of my time, so I'd ask for your indulgence. I would just say, as to the appeal, the Alliance represents literally many hundreds of Bel Air residents that are vitally concerned about the impact of these mega projects in the hillsides and this latest haul route permit. There is a huge difference between an average house of 5,000 square feet and a house of 40,000 square feet. And also, it's bad enough that the permit here says that it's going to be 29,000 cubic yards of earth. We've actually determined that it's 50,000 cubic yards of earth. Let's put that in context. The city of Beverly Hills limits export to 3,000 cubic yards per hillside lot in any 5-year period. And we're talking about 50,000 cubic yards for this one project. Something is seriously out of whack here, as is evidenced by your consideration of the prior 2 agenda items. There's 2 parts to this appeal: the violation of CEQA by failing to prepare an EIR, and the violation of the city's own ordinance, which says a haul permit cannot be approved if there's adverse impacts on the health, safety, and welfare of existing residents. As to the violations of CEQA, we've set it forth in our appeal letter. We set it forth in our lengthy letter to the board below. It's clear. We made several fair arguments of adverse impacts. We supported those fair arguments with substantial evidence in the form of expert opinions, and that's all we have to do. That ends the discussion for the appeal. It doesn't matter whether they show up a week from now if you grant the continuance and submit 20 experts. It doesn't matter. The legal test is, did the appellant, the opponent, make a fair argument and present substantial evidence? And if we did, an EIR is required. There's no gray area. It's not a maybe. It's black and white. The second argument, let me just say something about staff's response to that argument below. Staff's response, Mr. Jason Healy, was to kind of thumb through the negative declaration and say, well, it talks about trees and it talks about fire evacuation and says it was all addressed by the planning department. That's impossible to have occurred because the planning department's negative declaration was July 2nd, and we submitted all our arguments and evidence on August 25th. So it was total nonsense and misled the Board of Building and Safety. Basically, this mitigated negative declaration is legally dead, and it cannot be resuscitated no matter what the applicant says today or at another hearing. In terms of violation of the city's code, that they cannot issue this permit if it harms the public health and safety, we presented evidence on air quality, on fire evacuation, on hazards to public safety in terms of the pedestrians walking on the streets, none of which was rebutted. But you don't have to take my word for it. You can take the word of your own chief inspector from the Building and Safety Division, Mr. Robert Steinbeck, who said in the front page Los Angeles Times article from August 30th of this year, quote, right now you're talking about a nuisance issue because people see and hear idling trucks and they worry about fire and rescue vehicles, he said. But if they do the construction work in the rainy season, you're talking about really dangerous effects. So it's the lesser of the evils, close quotes. You
Thank you.
cannot approve a negative declaration when your own city officials are making comments like that.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Edgar Kalashian, applicant rep.
Mr. Chair, thank you. Edgar Kaladian with Mayor Brown, representing the applicant. I was retained late last week by the applicant, and as a courtesy have requested that this body grant us a one-week continuance. I will not directly respond to the appellant's attorney's incorrect legal arguments. I will defer to our city attorney on that. I'd like to note that this project is and complies with the planning and zoning code, complies with the building code, complies with the baseline hillside ordinance. There is not a single entitlement, variance, or other type of request made. The only discretionary approval in front of the city was a haul wrap permit. This project was designed specifically to fit within the parameters of the city's ordinance. The fact is, the property since 1982 has been unusable because of a landslide, and the city's building and safety department is requiring our applicant to remove dirt in order to stabilize the landslide. The appellant's own geologist in their report said that if you want to build a house, any house on this property, you must first stabilize the landslide. The method we have undertaken to stabilize the landslide is the only feasible method to build a house. We have not requested any variances. This is a project that is by right and subject to the haul wrap permit, and again, as deference to my recent representation, request a one-week continuance.
Thank you. Thank you. Nikki Miner, Bruce Kuiper.
Nikki Miner. I am on the Land Use Committee of the Benedict Canyon Association and the Bel Air Beverly Crest Neighborhood Council. Every project that comes before me on which I will have to vote, I go look at it in person. I would like to urge each and every one of you to go up there, look at the haul road, look at the roads, drive on them, look at the project, and see for yourselves. This is really vital. It's very urgent, and I just couldn't urge you enough to do that and to approve the appeal. Thank you.
Thank you. Bruce Kuiper.
The applicant's attorney said that they need this in order to build a house there. They only need it to build a house of this monstrous size there, which is basically a commercial development, the size that they're proposing there. It's a spec house. I urge you to support the Alliance's appeal. The CEQA analysis and description omits 20,000 cubic yards of dirt hauling because they don't require a permit for that, because that's for drilling support pylons and soldier piles. So that wasn't included in the CEQA analysis or in the MND, so it would clearly be thrown out by court. So I urge you to grant the appeal and send it back to the Department of Building and Safety for a proper CEQA analysis. The applicant's attorney did not say specifically that I heard that it complies with CEQA. This does not comply with CEQA. Thank you.
Thank you. Gary Plotkin, Michael Kemp.
Gentlemen, again, for the record, Gary Plotkin, as president of Bel Air Beverly Crest Neighborhood Council. We support the appellant. I think he said everything that I would say, so I will just tell you that we support that position. Thank you.
Thank you. Michael Kemp, Pamela Pearson.
Yes, Michael Kemp, Chairman of the Planning and Land Use Committee for the Bel Air Beverly Crest Neighborhood Council. I attended meetings with both the applicant and with the Bel Air Alliance that's appealing this decision, and again, we ask that your support for this appeal from the Bel Air Alliance. Thank you.
Thank you. Sean Bayless.
Yes, as I was stating previously, now applying to the haul route, this developer who constructed a 10,000 square foot home with the same size footprint basement also circumvented the haul route hearing. He did not obtain soil studies. He did not obtain surveys for the grading permit to be issued on my property. Therefore, I am undergoing continuous damage, which now my property is subsiding because there was no mitigating action taken on part of the developer when he started cutting the toe out from under the hill of my home and my adjacent property's owner. He has exceeded his property boundaries, and since this falls within the Mulholland State Corridor, it also, I believe, falls under the discretion of the Secretary of the Interior, under the National Park Service. And this is completely contradictory to what they desire for a good and healthy environment.
Thank you. Sean Bayless.
Sean Bayless, Councilmember Paul Koretz, Planning and Land Use Guy. Really just speaking to the request for the continuance, we understand that continuances get requested. It's not atypical. We understand that there is a 30-day limit to that from the date that Building and Safety made their determination, which puts the last day for council to hear this, I believe next Friday. I believe the council date was scheduled for October 1st prior to a week continuance. Still puts the date at October 1st, so our office doesn't have a problem with the request for a 7-day continuance.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. There's been a request to continue this. I would recommend we continue this item for 1 week and come back and hear this item. Any objections? No objections? So order? Okay. Okay. Thank you very much.
Councilman, is public comment closed for next week?
Public comment is closed for now, with the exception of hearing the applicant and the appellant at the next hearing, so we could hear the merits on the matter. Thank you. Thank you very much. This meeting is adjourned.